Most people think that Ford Street is just where the parade happens, a straight stretch of pavement, a good viewing spot, a place to throw candy in July and complain about, well, the locals and potentially the traffic the rest of the year. But what if I told you that this street wasn't built for parades? It was built for war, trade, power, and survival. And long before marching bands and floats rolled down Ford Street, soldiers, well, they did. This is the real story of Ford Street in Ogdensburg, New York, and why it might be the most historically important road in the entire county. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Street Sign Storytime, where I drive all around this beautiful country, mostly, places where I, coach and where I drive with the family. And Ford Street, it's an iconic street every July, Seaway Festival Parade. And it's deeply rooted, and I was able to find some really cool stuff that I wanted to share with you guys. So without wasting any more of your time, let's talk about Ford Street, the road that built Ogdensburg. Because before there was a Ford Street, there wasn't even an Ogdensburg. This area began as a French military and trading outpost in the mid-1700s, positioned where the Oswegatchie River meets the St. Lawrence River, one of the most valuable transportation corridors North America. That river, it wasn't scenery, it was a highway. Fur, lumber, supplies, troops, everything moved through here. Control the river, and you control the region. That is exactly why this place kept changing hands. The French, the British, and eventually American. And when the United States officially took control after the Revolutionary War, a new town began to take shape. That town became Ogdensburg. And Ford Street is not named after vehicles. It predates cars by more than a century. The street is named for Nathan Ford, one of the foundational figures in Ogdensburg's early American history. Nathan Ford, he arrived in the area around 1796 as an agent for Colonel Samuel Ogden, the man Ogdensburg itself is named after. Ford wasn't a background character. He was deeply involved in organizing early settlement. He would even go on to manage land and supplies. He supported military logistics. He helped establish Ogdensburg as an American town after British rule. When the town grid was laid out, names, they mattered. Streets were named for people who, shaped the place, not celebrities. They weren't just random words. Ford Street carries the name of someone who helped build the city from the ground up. Literally. This is where Ford Street stops being historic and starts being pretty serious, because in January of 1813, during the War of 1812, Ogdensburg became the site of a direct military assault. British forces that crossed the St. Lawrence River from Canada. I mean, just think about that for a second. An army marching across a frozen international border into an American town. What followed was the Battle of Ogdensburg. Street to street fighting. Buildings damaged or, even destroyed. American forces overwhelmed and forced to retreat. Ogdensburg was effectively neutralized as a military outpost after that attack, and Ford Street sat right in the heart of the area affected by that fighting and movement. This wasn't a battlefield out in the woods. This was urban warfare in the North Country more than 200 years ago. When you stand on Ford Street today, you're standing where history didn't just happen. It actually collided. And then after the war, Ogdensburg rebuilt, and Ford Street became one of the city's central arteries. As the 1800s rolled on, the street evolved into a commercial corridor, a civic spine, a connection between, the point where it was river, downtown, and then eventually neighborhoods. Shops, they opened offices, they followed, and services, institutions, and businesses came and went. Ford Street became a place where people worked, people gathered, people passed through every single day. If you wanted to understand Ogdensburg in the 19th and early 20th centuries, you didn't start at the outskirts. You started here. And if you drive down Ford Street, you'll notice some of the buildings have probably changed names, probably even purposes, many, many times. But the bones are still there. The structures have housed early retailers, service organizations, health and community centers, county-connected offices, each generation layered in its own, story on top of the list. And I mean, that's something locals feel, even if they, I guess, can't quite explain it. Ford Street doesn't feel new because Ford Street isn't. And now comes the twist. The same street once tied to war, now tied to celebration. Every July, 4th Street becomes the centerpiece of the Seaway Festival Parade, one of the largest and longest running events in St. Lawrence County. You got floats and marching bands, fire trucks, and kids scrambling for candy, getting yelled at not to get ran over. Families, they line the sidewalks year after year, many without realizing the ground beneath them once echoed with boots and muskets. That contrast, I mean, think about it. It's pretty powerful. A road built for survival, it's now used for joy. And 4th Street isn't famous because something strange happened here. It's important because everything happened there. Settlement, war, commerce, community, celebration. It's a timeline that you can actually just drive down, walk down if people still actually walk. And that, in my opinion, is the magic of Street Sign Storytime. I mean, sometimes the greatest stories aren't hidden. They're right in front of us, waiting for someone to slow down and ask, hey, why is this road here? So the next time you're standing on 4th Street, waiting for the parade, walking past old buildings, or just driving through town, remember this. You're not just on a street. You're on one of the original arteries of Ogdensburg, a road named for a founder, shaped by war, strengthened by community, and still doing its job more than 2 centuries later. It's 4th Street. And that's why this story, in my opinion, was worth telling. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you have a recommendation, let me know in the comments what street we should do next. Because we're going to do this again next week. And hopefully you'll be there. Because, well, I'll be there. This has been another Street Sign Storytime. Can't thank you enough for taking some time out of your busy day to give this a listen. We'll be back next week. Take care, everybody.